Section 55 of A History of the Inquisition of Spain, Volume 4. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by T.K. Anderson. A History of the Inquisition of Spain, Volume 4, by Henry Charles LEA, Book 8, Chapter 12, Part 1, Spheres of Action, Freemasonry. Few subjects have been so fertile as Freemasonry in the growth of legend and myth. If we may believe some of its over-enthusiastic members, the Archangel Michael was the Grand Master of the earliest Masonic lodge. The builders of the Tower of Babel were wicked Masons, and those who held aloof from the impious work were Freemasons. Others trace its origin to Lamech, and others again tell us that the first Grand Lodge in England was founded by St. Alban in 287. Its adversaries are equally extravagant. If we may trust them, it is the precursor of Antichrist and a survival of Manichaeism. It is supreme in European cabinets and directs the policy of the civilized world in opposition to the Church. Every pope in the 19th century fulminated his anathema against it. The Abbé Darwin assures us that Jansenism is the masterpiece of the powers of evil, and that it has become, in the form of Masonry, the most formidable of secret societies, organized for the destruction of the Christian monarchy. There are zealous Spanish Masons who assure us that the Comunidades of Castile and the Germania of Valencia were the work of Masons, that Augustine and Pedro Cazalla and the other victims of the auto of May 21, 1559, were Masons, and that the unfortunate Don Carlos was a victim to Masonry. Descending to the sobriety of fact, Masonry emerges into the light of history in 1717, when Dr. de Segulier, Anthony Sayer, George Payne, and a few others formed, in London, an organization based on toleration, benevolence, and good fellowship. Its growth was slow, and its first appearance in Spain was in 1726, when the London Lodge granted a charter for one in Gibraltar. Lord Wharton is said to have founded one in Madrid in 1727, and soon afterwards another was organized in Cadiz. These were primarily for the benefit of English residents, although doubtless natives were eligible to membership. As yet it was not under the ban of the Church, but its introduction in Tuscany led the Grand Duke Gian Gaston to prohibit it. His speedy death, July 9, 1737, caused his edict to be neglected. The clergy represented the matter to Clement XII, who sent to Florence an inquisitor. He made a number of arrests, but the parties were set at liberty by the new Grand Duke, Francis of Lorraine, who declared himself the patron of the order and participated in the organization of several lodges. Clement sustained his inquisitor and issued, April 28, 1738, his bull In Eminenti, calling attention to the oath-bound secrecy of the lodges, which was just cause for suspicion, as their object would not be concealed if it were not evil, leading to their prohibition in many states. Wherefore, in view of the grave consequences threatened to public tranquillity and the salvation of souls, he forbade the faithful to favor them or to join them under pain of ipso facto excommunication, removable only by the Holy See. Prelates, superiors, ordinaries, and inquisitors were ordered to inquire against and prosecute all transgressors and to punish them condignly as vehemently suspect of heresy, for all of which he granted full powers. Thus the only accusation brought against Masonry was its secrecy, but this sufficed for the creation of a new heresy, furnishing to the Inquisition a fresh subject for its activity. The nature of the condign punishment thus threatened was left to the discretion of the local tribunals, but a standard was furnished by an edict of the Cardinal Secretary of State, January 14, 1739, pronouncing irremissible pain of death, not only on all members, but on all who should tempt others to join the order, or should render house to it, or favor it in any other way. The only victim of this savage decree is said to have been a Frenchman who wrote a book on Masonry. It is true that, in this same year, 1739, the Inquisition in Florence tortured a Mason named Crudelie and kept him in prison for a considerable time. But the death penalty was a matter for the secular authorities, and in Florence those were not under control. Indeed, when the Inquisition offered pardon for self-denunciation and 100 crowns for information and made several arrests, the Grand Duke interposed and liberated the prisoners. Even when the archimpostor Cagliostro, in 1789, ventured to found a lodge in Rome and was tried by the Inquisition, the sentence, rendered April 7, 1791, recited that, although he had incurred the death penalty, it was mercifully commuted to imprisonment for life. He was accordingly imprisoned in the castle of San Leon, where he is supposed to have died in 1795. The Parlement of Paris refused to register the bull of 1738, and when, in 1750, the Jubilee attracted crowds of pilgrims to Rome, so many had to seek relief from the excommunication incurred under it that Benedict XIV was led to revive it, May 18, 1751, in his Constitution Providas, pointing out moreover the injury to the purity of faith arising from the association of men of different beliefs, and invoking the aid of all Catholic princes to enforce the decrees of the Holy See. When thus, without provocation, Rome declared war to the knife against the new organization, it naturally became hostile to Rome, and when its membership was forbidden to the faithful, it was necessarily confined to those who were either indifferent or antagonistic to the Roman faith. While the papal commands were ignored in France, they had been eagerly welcomed in Spain. The bull in eminenti received the royal exequatur, and the Inquisitor General, Orbe Hilariategui, published it in an edict, October 11, 1738, pointing out that the Inquisition had exclusive jurisdiction in the matter. He promised to prosecute with the utmost severity all disobedience to the bull, and called for denunciations within 6 days of all infractions, under pain of excommunication and of 200 ducats. The edict was to be read in the churches, and to be affixed to their portals, thus giving an effective advertisement to the new institution by conveying a knowledge of its existence to a population thus far happily ignorant. The Inquisition, however, was not allowed long to enjoy the exclusive jurisdiction claimed, for Philip V, in 1740, issued an edict under which, we are told, a number of Masons were sent to the galleys, while the Inquisition vindicated its rights by breaking up a lodge in Madrid and punishing its members. There was thus established a cumulative jurisdiction which continued, for state autocracy and church autocracy were alike jealous of a secret organization of unknown strength, which, in troublous times, might become dangerous. Fernando VI manifested this by a pragmatica of July 2, 1751, in which he forbade the formation of lodges under pain of the royal indignation and punishment at the royal discretion. All judges were required to report delinquents, and all commanders of armies and fleets to dismiss with dishonor any culprits discovered in the service. That, in spite of these repressive measures, Freemasonry was spreading may be assumed from the publication, about this time, of 2 editions of a little book against it, in which this decree is embodied. Padre Fejo assisted in advertising the order by devoting to it a letter in which, with gentle satire, he treated it as a hobgoblin, imposing on public credulity with false pretenses, although there might be evil spirits among the harmless ones. The Inquisition, meanwhile, was not idle, though it did not imitate the severity of the papal government, or of the royal edicts. In 1744, the Madrid tribunal sentenced to abjuration de levi and banishment from Spain Don Francisco Orion de Roscobel, canon of Quintanar, for Freemasonry. In 1756, the same tribunal prescribed reconciliation for Domingo de Otas, and in 1757, a Frenchman named Tournon escaped with a year's detention and banishment from Spain, although, by endeavoring to induce his employees to join the order, he was reckoned as a dogmatizer. Another case about the same time reveals a strange indifference, possibly attributable to hesitation in attacking a dependent of a powerful minister. A priest named Joaquin Pareja presented himself, April 19, 1746, to the Toledo tribunal and related that when, in 1742, he accompanied the Infant Philippe to Italy, he lay for some months in Antibes, where he made the acquaintance of Antonio de Rosellon, gentleman of the chamber to the Marquis of La Ensenada, who talked freely to him about Freemasonry, of which he was a member. He had but recently learned that Freemasons were an infernal sect, condemned by a papal bull, and he had made haste to denounce Rosellon. No action was taken for 18 months when, on October 13, 1747, the tribunal asked the Madrid inquisitors to examine Rosellón after consulting the Suprema. The Suprema promptly scolded it for its remissness and ordered it to make inquiry of other tribunals. The customary interrogations were sent around with negative results, and, on January 8, 1748, the fiscal reported accordingly. There was but one witness, and therefore he recommended suspension, which was duly voted. Some 20 months passed away when suddenly, September 7, 1751, the Suprema recurred to the matter and wrote to Toledo demanding a report. Toledo waited for more than a month and then, on October 16th, replied that it referred the whole affair to the Madrid tribunal as Pareja and Rosellón were both in that city. This probably ended the case. End of section 55.